Welcome to the 75th academic year of King's College. In 1946, at the very first opening ceremonies of King's College, Bishop Hafey spoke these words: "Years from this day, hundreds, perhaps thousands, will gather to recall historically the beginnings of this college, to recount its growth, and especially to estimate its fruit, its worth to the community of human beings. It is quite probable that the speaker of that day will recall that the college was founded at the very time when the world's foundations appeared to be crumbling, when men and nations were trembling before the latest invention of the human mind, the atomic bomb." Bishop Hafey is addressing his remarks to some 300 incoming students, the majority of which were veterans of the Second World War. Men who had experienced trials and terrors of which we can only imagine. Bishop Hafey is addressing his remarks at a time when many believed the world's foundations were trembling. It appears to many today that the world's foundations may indeed be trembling, or at least undergoing a very serious shock. A shock that has brought illness, death, decline, and economic, emotional uncertainty to so many across our world. The COVID-19 pandemic is worldwide, deep, and alters not only our present, but clouds our future. I deliver these words in this newly renovated church, Christ the King Chapel. This church was built in 1872 because of another world pandemic, the scarlet fever pandemic of the 19th century. Tens of thousands of children died worldwide in the 1800s because of the scarlet fever. Wilkes-Barre was not spared. In 1871, the fever swept through the city, killing many under the age of 10. Images of 3 of those victims, together with 3 angels, are depicted in the stained glass windows to my left. They are the children of the founders of this church structure, Calvin and Fanny Wadham. We can speculate that Calvin and Fanny had hopes like many of us, hopes of getting a good education, hopes of getting a decent job, hopes of finding the right kind of partner, hopes for marriage, hopes for children. By all accounts, Calvin and Fanny were remarkably successful at having their hopes realized. They had been extremely fortunate in most areas of life. But Calvin and Fanny, like all of us, come to learn that if you live long enough, hope will disappoint. They lost their 3 young children, ages 2, 6, and 8, within a period of 30 days. They stood, like many before and many since, at that place between despair and hope. They no doubt wondered if there was a big hope, a grand hope, a hope beneath all other life hopes on which they could stand, a hope that could face the sneers of tragedy, despair, fear, and death, and not blink. Calvin and Fanny decided to build this church structure in memory of their 3 children. They decided to raise up this church from the death of their children in the hope that this church would be a center for the good works of the kind the Wadhams believed their children would have undertaken had their lives not been cut so short. This newly renovated Christ the King Chapel is built upon hope, the hope of a new and better life that follows the challenges of life. King's College, like this church, is built on hope. Let me return to those words of Bishop Hafey spoken some 75 years ago. In that far-off day when the speaker, that would be me, and his audience, that would be you, are thanking God that America remained the America of the free and a beacon light to all nations, the reasons will include the contributions made by institutions like King's College, founded on two great principles. First, that education, to be worthy of the name, must be more than informing. It must be formative. And second, the advantages that follow in its wake must be made available to all who merit it by worth and talent. The son and daughter of the working person, no less than the children of the well-to-do. Some 24,000 alumni later, King's College remains true to these two great principles. The reason we are gathering in person, not exclusively or primarily online, but physically on this college campus, is because we are faithful to the principle that education is more than informing, it is formative. Formation happens in communities, or, as the King's College mission statement puts it, King's pursues excellence in teaching, learning, scholarship, and personal attention to student formation in a nurturing community. Personal attention in a nurturing community. Today, the phrase essential worker has gained wide notoriety. One of the positives coming out of this pandemic challenge has been the well-deserved recognition and appreciation for all those women and men who are providing to the rest of us basic necessary services: healthcare, food, security, education, and energy, to name a few. Many of these individuals providing these essential services are the family members of our students. Many of our students are working part-time jobs in these essential services. They, and so many others, are putting themselves at risk for the sake of us all, for the sake of their families, for the sake of a college education. We have been working every day over these past months to ensure the safety of our college community and to provide the best college education experience for our students. Circumstances and protocols have been moving and evolving. However, these now familiar phrases have endured. Wash your hands often. Wear a face mask. Social distance. Outside is better than inside. Avoid crowds, and especially avoid alcohol and crowds. They have become familiar to us all, and they are, at present, the best ways for all of us to have a safe, fulfilling, and successful academic year. Wonderfully and exhaustively developed written rules and protocols will have no effect if we are not faithful to practicing these basic and important behavioral norms. I reinforced this message with our incoming first-year class and will continue to do so. I told the incoming class of 2024 that periodically in history, a group of people are challenged to go above and beyond the normal course of human events. This is such a time. Few groups of students outside of wartime have been asked to take on the challenges they are now asked to undertake. This college community is making a large bet that each of us will be faithful to the behaviors that will protect and keep healthy this entire community. I have every confidence the class of 2024 will do their part and do it well. I have every confidence our entire college community will do their part and do it well. Over these past few weeks, I have made the very intentional practice of limiting my exposure to the 24-hour news cycle and instead have paid more attention to the various opinions of a good many thought leaders across many different disciplines and representing diverse perspectives. I was interested in the subject of life on the other side of the COVID-19 crisis. As you might imagine, There is a wide range of speculation and no single consensus. However, a few themes seem, at least to me, most probable. First, full, pre-pandemic employment will not come roaring back. It will take time to recover from the significant amount of structural damage done to our economy. Many small businesses have been wiped out or are teetering on solvency. Many large industries, airlines, hotels, travel, to name but a few, will take time to recover. And what that new normal will be is hard to say. The families of many of our current and future students will continue to have significant economic challenges. And of course, the job prospects of our most recent graduates, those graduates who we celebrated virtually on August the 16th, face employment challenges not experienced in a very long time. Second, those families fortunate enough to have steady employment will likely be much more sensitive to tuition costs. A leading economist gives this simple illustration. He was speaking with an airline baggage handler who had recently lost his job. The airline employee thought he was very secure in his position, never thought a time would come when his job would be in jeopardy. One result of this security was that his family, like so many other families who have recently lost their jobs, had no savings to fall back on. His comment to the economist, "When I get back on my feet, you can be sure I will start saving more." This, of course, means that he, like so many others, will be very cautious about taking on more debt. We all know that college debt is at an all-time high. It is unlikely that families will have a willingness to take on even higher levels of college debt. That is to say, there will be pressure to freeze or reduce the cost of higher education. These summer months, I have also been reading and rereading in preparation for teaching a course this semester in operations management, basic and classical tenets of sound management. One of these basic tenets involves answering a question that precedes all other resource allocation questions. Before attempting to answer questions such as, how many or what kind of employees do we need? Or what sort of facilities are necessary? Or what sort of equipment and supplies are required? Before all these other resource questions, we must first address this question: what is the demand for our product or service? In the case of King's College, the foundational resource allocation question is, what sort of programs, academic, athletic, support, do our students desire, and what price, tuition, are they willing to pay? All the other big resource allocation questions, who, what, where, and how, cannot be correctly addressed until we are comfortable in estimating what programs students are demanding and what financial resources they are willing to commit. This fall, we will do a comprehensive review of student demand for our program offerings, types of programs, demand for programs, willingness of students and their families to pay for programs, and the teaching modalities desired for these programs. The result will be a 5-year plan for estimated student demand. Further decisions on resource allocation will be guided by the estimated student demand for programming. We can then address those questions involving the kinds and types and amounts of human, physical, and intellectual capital necessary to effectively meet the demands of our students and the mission of the college. Many commentators have used the phrase fog of war to describe our current situation during this global pandemic. There is much we cannot see clearly and few solid guideposts showing the way. Ever more important that we return to our foundational principles laid out 75 years ago to ground us and to provide solid normative railposts. The foundational principles of providing affordable access to high-quality education, education that is transformative, education grounded in personal attention to student formation in a nurturing community. An educational system can be measured by the extent to which it allows individuals to reach their human potential. This measure is especially noteworthy when it involves moving successful stories of disadvantaged students who have overcome great odds and tragic personal stories to be successful. These stories are inspirational not only because of the mighty efforts of students, but because of the willing, able, and generous support of the college community. A college community that takes interest in students and gives them a second, or third, or fourth, or fifth chance. A college community like King's College. A college community with a mission to provide students access and personal transformation in an environment that takes developing each student to their potential very seriously. To give students multiple chances to succeed. We call this vision transforming hearts and minds with zeal in communities of hope. The college recently honored, through a wonderful virtual ceremony, 6 distinguished King's alumni who have demonstrated remarkable contributions to their professional fields and to the communities in which they live. 6 remarkable stories of overcoming huge challenges to rise to the very top of their respective fields. 6 remarkable stories that give flesh and blood example to the words of our mission. I will conclude my address with the story of one of these astonishing individuals, Amy Gravino, class of 2005. But before turning to Amy and listening to her remarkable story, I want to thank each and every member of this King's College community. It is you who make so many stories like Amy's possible. It is you who make possible the mission of King's College. To build on the words of Bishop Hafey spoken those 75 years ago, may it be that years from this day, hundreds, perhaps thousands more, will gather to recall historically the progress of this college, to recount its growth, and especially to estimate its fruit, its worth to the community of human beings. May God continue to bless you and your efforts in this great mission.
I can still remember the first moment that I set foot on the sidewalk at King's, and knowing this was where I wanted to go to college. The journey that brought me to that sidewalk was as long and formidable as the one that I have embarked on since graduating in 2005. For the first 18 years of my life, all I did was survive. I existed without being, without knowing or believing that I would ever have any place in the world. It was only as a student at King's that I truly began to live. Through elementary, middle, and high school, I stayed silent, believing that no one wanted to hear what I had to say. But during my senior year at King's, I was filmed for a documentary called Normal People Scare Me, and suddenly, people were listening. In 2011, I was given the opportunity to speak at the United Nations for World Autism Awareness Day, and people listened again. Autism and sexuality became the central focus of my career and passion shortly after that, and I began to share the most private and painful moments of my personal life, and people listened. People heard my story, and it meant something to them, and it made them rethink their perception of autism and how we treat people who are different. When you grow up on the autism spectrum, it is not with the expectation of success or happiness. You are defined by what you cannot do and what you will never have. And that feeling of being broken, wrong, and incomplete stays with you deep inside. It was this feeling that somehow propelled me from seeing my only career option as writing poetry in a cottage in the Italian Alps to becoming an autism advocate, international speaker, and now a relationship coach in the Center for Adult Autism Services at Rutgers University. Yet absolutely none of this would have ever been possible without the support of the people who have helped me get here. The people I met at King's lifted me with their friendship, sometimes literally, all the way up the steep incline of Cole Street. The guidance I've received from my professors, including Dr. Jennifer McClinton Temple, who graciously nominated me for the Leo Award, has been immeasurable. The friends I have made in the years since leaving King's have shown me incredible love, kindness, and humor, and have talked me down from the proverbial ledge time and again. Last, but certainly not least, my parents, Beatrice and Michael, who are the reason I am sitting here before you. I am the woman that I am today because of everything they have done for me, the patience they have shown, and the grace they have given to a daughter they were told would never accomplish anything. From the bottom of my heart, thank you. I am so tremendously, deeply grateful, and I will carry this moment with me into the work that I do, the work that still needs to be done to ensure a brighter future for all autistic people and their loved ones. Thank you, and good night.